Hello, in this section I want to tell you about the prerequisites of Flutter programming and how can we use the software to have Android, iOS, Mac, Windows, and Linux output. In order to install Flutter and use it, as you know, Flutter enables you to use a single code to have output for all platforms available, like Android, iOS, Windows, Mac, Linux, and even web. In fact, all famous platforms and famous operating systems are supported by Flutter, and we can use one code to have several outputs. Well, the first thing we have to do is downloading and installing JDK. JDK is actually Java Development Kit. In simple terms, in order to create codes for Java and have jar output, you have to install JDK. JDK is a series of softwares and libraries that help you to write codes for Java and have great outputs. It should be noted that SDK is like JDK, and if you want to write codes for Android and have Android output, you need to install SDK. And after that, you have to install Android Studio. So what is JDK? In order to write codes for Java, you need to install JDK. And in order to write codes for Android and get output for it, you have to install SDK. The question is, why should we install Java before SDK? Well, before you install SDK, you need to install JDK because Java is a prerequisite of Android programming. It means that in order to write codes for Android, you should have Java installed before, which means the installation of JDK before SDK. Now, we enter here, and after opening Chrome, we type JDK download. JDK download. After typing JDK download, the first site that is shown for us is www.oracle.com, which is the official site for JDK and its download. After loading of the site, we scroll down after accepting all the cookies. Yeah, we scroll down. Pay attention that this version is for Linux. Since our operating system is Windows 10, we have to download JDK for Windows. Look, this is JDK for Mac OS X, and as you see, JDK is available for all famous operating systems. So, we should download JDK for Windows.exe. And after downloading and accepting the rules, yes, after its download and installation, we should sign in and install JDK. After signing in, we download the JDK. Since I have downloaded it in the past, there is no need to download it again. Well, then we enter the oracle.com website and download and install JDK. The next step is to install SDK. Pay attention that when installing Android Studio, we have access to SDK, so by downloading Android Studio, we can have SDK too. But what is Android Studio? We want a programming environment in order to write and manage our codes. Android Studio is a powerful programming platform that there we can enter our codes and receive our desired outputs. We are going to run Flutter inside the Android Studio that we are going to cover during the next sessions. So we were talking about downloading and installing SDK, and as I said, Android Studio has SDK by itself. So we should download and install Android Studio. Or we can write download SDK, there is no difference. So we type SDK download, or we can type Android Studio. The first link that appears after these ads is developerandroid.com, which is the official site for downloading SDK. So after installing JDK, we install Android Studio as a second step, which has SDK by itself. Okay, here we select Android Studio download and install Android Studio. After installing Android Studio, we have to adjust some of the settings. Here we select install and it is installing. So what should we do now? After installing Android Studio, if we go to Android Studio website again, and install this, a right click here, we accept this and select download this Android Studio for Windows. Now Android Studio is downloading at the bottom of the page, and after downloading we have to install it. I have downloaded it before, so there is no need to install it. The next step, the next step is that we are going to find environment variable from the start. So we click on the start button and type environment variable. And the first choice is edit system environment variable. We click on it. We select environment variable. But what is environment variable? You know, in order to run the outputs of all programming languages in Windows, we have to define the destination of the programming language inside the environment variable. Well, since we have installed JDK in the first step, we have to define the Java home address here. Environment variable has name, and its name should be Java home, and I have written it here, Java home. And its destination is the place we have installed JDK. During the JDK installation, it asks us the destination, and we select our desired destination. Usually, its default destination is this, C program files. Yeah, let me show it inside the drives. So we go to drive C, program files, Java, and there is the JDK folder. Yeah, here, JDK folder. Because I have installed two JDKs, yeah, let me download JDK again. Download JDK. If I go to this destination, look, I have came here and installed JDK. Yes, here, and installed JDK. I've also installed one of the previous versions of JDK. So I have 4 files here. There are 4 folders for me here. But normally, you should have 2 folders. The first one is JDK and the second one is JRE. JRE is for running and getting output for Java. But JDK is for writing codes for Java. So we have JDK and JRE. We open the JDK folder, JDK 1.8, and copy the address and paste the destination inside Java Home. Java Home should be written in capital letters. We press the OK. In the next step, we have to define Android Home for it. Android Home is for the SDK that we have installed with the Android Studio. So, Java Home is for JDK, which we have to define it, and Android Home is for the SDK that we have to define it too. Android Home is just the same. When you are installing Android Home, your SDK has a destination. There is a folder named SDK. If I go inside this destination, you will see SDK. So I go to drive C. If you look at here, portable IDE, Android, yes, look at here, C, portable IDE, Android Studio, and Android SDK. I copy the Android SDK folder destination and paste it here. These are the 2 steps which had to do for Java Home and Android Home. Android Home is for SDK and JDK is for JDK, which should be done. I've put some other things here too. For example, I have PHP destination for PHP 2, but we don't want to use it now. Because earlier I wanted to use PHP language. I have defined its destination here. But you don't have to define it because you don't need them. Yeah. I hope you have enjoyed this session and we will continue these subjects during the next sessions. Thank you.